We're live.
All right, in absence of Chairman Curry's, unless he's on the Zoom there, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This time, I'd like to stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up on the agenda, we got approve the minutes of the last meeting. Members probably had emailed them out. I don't know if any had a chance to go over them or if we wanted to put it off until the following meeting. Chance to review them, or
I read them, I reviewed them.
okay, Justice, you
Fine to me.
got both of them minutes?
I'd written them, so I think I
Okay.
know what's in the minutes.
Are you all set?
Yeah.
Okay, this time, if anyone's got any questions, comments, concerns, changes they'd like to put forward? Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Wednesday, October 5th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, been made and seconded.
Yes.
No further comments, take a vote. Yes. Justice?
Yes.
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 And I'm a yes. 4 yeses. All right, next up, we'll do the department reviews.
Pardon.
Sorry.
We're gonna go down the list that came on the agenda, so fire, you're up first.
We both only have one, so you don't mind us.
Oh, good. No, I was just going down the list on the agenda, so however.
I got multiple things, so. Okay. You wanna go first and I'll go after you?
Hello.
Hello.
So I am here for recreation.
Second.
So this request is for a water reel device, sometimes referred to as a water cannon. That in the absence of an irrigation system, which there isn't one up at Gilman Waite, would allow us to irrigate the playing fields. Make them definitely safer. And more appealing, not just for our recreation programs, but for potentially outside tournaments and groups that would like to use the fields. This summer, towards the end of the summer, with the drought, they were just in horrendous shape. So this would be a really useful piece of equipment.
Now, I know you put the cost in that. Do you have any idea on what it costs to use it each time it's used and how long you have to use it for, as far as how long would it run?
Actually, Bob Sozik put together he went after the estimate that I supplied for you. So I don't have any of that information in terms of, fuel or anything like that. I
So
don't know.
be able to probably get that from Bob, or?
Yes, yeah.
You know, if is it a motorized?
Is it gas,
thing?
electric,
Is
is it?
I believe it's gas powered,
Was-
yeah.
Okay.
Who's gonna operate it? Who's gonna
Well,
take care of that?
When the legislation finally goes through to create Parks and Rec, the plan is for recreation to fall under the DPW. So I believe Bob has plans to hire a part-time seasonal person when that happens to, help absorb the extra work that's gonna be involved with maintaining the park. So they would, my guess is they would use it.
Yeah, good.
Off of what Jackie already just mentioned, would be the building and grounds department, once this legislation were to go through. That staff, that would be the plan, so just to verify.
When's that expected to go through?
Right now, it's still in the process, it's being held up, so we're hopeful that it gets done sooner rather than later. Just a matter of, we don't have a timetable of when the general court
Right.
or when the governor signs, as much as I would love to tell the governor, and the general court when to do it, it's a matter of the process taking its place. We have one of them that's already been approved, it took about roughly a year. So we're hopeful that this one comes up soon.
So is the plan to leave a placeholder in it in the budget for Bob and kind of take it from one to put to the other, or is it going to be an added budget expense when it comes to that?
Budget, or you mean the capital?
No, I mean, are you going to add that person to run it? Is that plan to go into the budget portion once it falls under DPW?
That would be correct.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about the Jackie's request.
No, I was referring to Cheryl's question on who was going to be running it and stuff. So, okay. Have no further questions on the justice? You guys
No,
have any
no further questions.
Do we have a funding source?
At this time, not listed. Cash.
I believe so, yeah.
I don't want to misspeak for you. So.
Do they collect fees when they have outside things come in? Would that be a source that could
It-
potentially pay for
it-
an item like this if we weren't able to put it on the capital plan as far as?
They do collect fees for, it would be like the town use policy fee, correct?
Yes, and related to certain capital, I think we had a discussion with town council about that, that there's a certain specific criteria it needs to meet, so that would have to have further review. Because it's a revolving account, so certain things are allowed and certain things aren't allowed, so whenever there's a question, we go to have that reviewed.
Now, is that something that I know where it's maintaining the fields and the different parks and that ARPA wise, it would fall under the ARPA wise, but does Templeton still have ARPA funds remaining to spend, or?
We have $1.8 million of, you don't mind if I come up here and speak, I mean.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jackie. So right now we have about $1.8 million of uncommitted ARPA funds. The reason for this was because what happened was as you all are aware, the Main Street Bridge project, Representative Slotnick and our legislative delegations worked to get $3 million. But that subject and the select board and the advisory committee already wrote a letter to the governor to release those funds. So if that were the case, that would be wonderful. And then we could focus $1.8 million of uncommitted towards other matters that need addressing in the town. But for the time being, until the governor releases those funds, that $1.8 million is uncommitted because we don't know if we'll have to use that for the Main Street Bridge project. The latest numbers I received is the project is upwards of $3.3 million. And that's an integral bridge within the town. So that's where we're at with the ARPA funds.
Was last year capital, there's something on the Main Street Bridge on last year's capital too. Like going to.
Oh, it was presented to us in anticipation of, I think what would happen at annual town meeting, if I'm correct.
The debt
What?
authorization.
Yeah, the debt authorization.
That's for the water portion, for the water pipe. On bridge. And that was $500,000.
I knew it was something I just got.
That town meeting specifically for the Main Street Bridge. I mean to.
No, that's right. We have a really energetic Recreation Commission board. They've got big plans for new programs and, really beefing up the concessions and having that be open for town events as well as outside events. But obviously the conditions of the fields, you know, that's pretty critical to attracting outside folks to, you know, to want to hold their events here. So, and it's an investment, you know, you've got these great fields up there. You want to be able to maintain them, make them usable and nice.
Any more questions? for Becky on that?
No.
All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. Holly, do you remember the school?
Doesn't work.
All right, Adam. Up next, yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mine, I have upgrades to town common. You probably all remember, over the summer, there was a lot of discussion over the town common improvements that can be made. Certain things, so I had a discussion with our DPW director, Bob Sozik, and we felt $30,000 would be appropriate, obviously, to make some improvements to that area. And what I'm looking for is the $30,000 to come out of free cash. What I would plan to do if these funds were to be approved by this committee and town meeting is put together a group of citizens that would be like an advisory committee to me on the suggested improvements for the common.
So this would be a one-time expense on that, or is it something that you'd be looking to put forward to continue doing the thing?
Well, I think the 30,000 would give us a good start on really addressing the common, whether it be grading matters or certain improvements, whether it be sidewalk or and the like. We're also going to look at whether there can be funding through CPC as well. Generally, though, for like maintenance or sidewalks, if you will, that would have certain things that don't get covered under CPC. So that's why you see the recommended sources of funding to come out of free cash.
Okay. Now, this be also something that contingent on if the funds are released for the Main Street Bridge, that potentially ARPA funds could be used for to alleviate it coming out of free cash, or?
Well, I think the whole fact is and as you know, Mr. Chair, is the ARPA funds have to be committed by 2024. So we have some time relative to those. But if let's say the state were to release the $3 million of funding, it would certainly open up other opportunities for the $1.8 million.
Okay, so it potentially could be something diff to state release. Cheryl, any questions on any questions on? No. No. Justice. All right. Good. Thank you on that.
Am I free to go?
You are, unless you want to stay for the rest of the request.
Well, thank you so
May
much.
have questions for you on the rest of the request too.
So I think with that, Fire Chief, might come up or TCTV.
I'm here for the duration.
It's your meeting, though, Mr. Jarrison.
Whichever one you would like to come first, we welcome you both.
Thank you.
I'm already here. Good afternoon. As you can see, I've got numerous things here. And we're at a point in fire department that we've done fairly well with the town in past years, that we're really at bigger ticket items that are what is really now. First thing on my list is my forestry 3, which is a water tender / tanker. It has come out of service this year. It is an old military truck that we've received. It is a 1985 truck. It is out of service now with major engine needs. The mechanic told me it would probably cost me over $5 or $6 just to dive into the engine to see what was wrong. And was estimating anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 to replace the engine with an engine I already had in a truck that is 30 some odd years old, military truck. I did not think that was prudent and took the truck out of service at this time. That truck is a little different. We have 3 forestry trucks in town. 2 military trucks. One of these, the one that's out of service, and another one which will be down the list. There's an old 1978 Chevy pickup truck that was retrofitted into a forestry. We do not have a forestry truck that is built to actually do the job of a forestry truck. Forestry 3 here is a unique truck. It has 1,000 gallons of water, which is a tanker. There are very few of these in our fire district, which makes it a very valuable asset. Our whole forestry program was designed to 2 smaller trucks to be able, well, 2 smaller water sources to be able to go in the woods, do the job, and this one to feed them water for an extended time until we had a water source that was available. So the estimated cost on this right now is $225,000, but as everybody knows, that is a fluctuating cost that no one can give you a hard number on at this point in time. This truck would be an NFPA compliant truck. We do have the option, if the town wants to take the liability of putting together a truck that's not NFPA compliant, nothing that I would do. But it would be an NFPA compliant truck that should last us quite a few years, 20 years plus, I would hope. Anybody have any questions on this?
I do, just the funding source, because it's not on here. Free cash.
Everything is free cash. Everything I put in, well, right now via, you're not gonna see an ambulance this year. The ambulance I have my own funding source for, but I try to write every grant I can find to cover anything. But at this point in time, the grants aren't even open for that. So if capital were to approve this and all of a sudden I were able to get a grant for it, then that grant funding would take the place of free cash from the town.
This was your first priority, this one, right?
Yes.
We got any questions on the forestry tanker?
No, I think we've, this has been presented, I think, a few times over the past
We-
couple of cycles. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the, and I anticipate some of the others and probably some of Bob's too, any of the bigger ticket items, I feel like they get presented a lot and they get bumped down the line. It's
Yeah.
just, it's a cost thing if you're trying to take and pay for stuff all at once. It just happens. It's tough to go around that.
How many times has this item been presented?
Well, this will be my 5th time at capital planning, so I can tell you it's been presented 5 times. Part of my packet, if you got it, is an Excel spreadsheet with not all, but quite a bit of my larger items. And I present that every year to capital because as part of my packet, that way I can say that I've come to capital. If I ever get a grant for something that's larger, part of town policy is that it has to come to capital. So if it didn't come to capital, then it's a hiccup in the line. By handing you my Excel spreadsheet, this has come to capital, I can say I at least presented it to you. But every year that we've done these forms, and I've done this, I have asked for forestry trucks every year.
Thank you.
But part of the problem with that is every item that I'm not asking for stuff this year because it didn't make the priority list, but it's still stuff that we needed. My next fire engine purchase, which you're looking at $700,000 right now, where the last engine was $450,000. Carter, when he was the town administrator, had a plan. Once that engine, which is my engine 3, we paid it off, that money would hopefully go right into the purchase of the next one. So as part of that plan, that's not coming yet, even though I have trucks that are old and need a replacement. So, probably next year, you'll start seeing that stuff come up because all those major trucks are over 12 months out, 12 to 18 to 24 months to be manufactured.
Oh, at least. At this point. Any more questions on the forestry?
Come on, chief.
What's up next?
Okay, my next item would be tanker 1. And we have a tanker up at Fire Station 1. There's a 1989, doesn't meet current safety standards for tanker trucks, for fire trucks. We don't have a lot of maintenance costs on it at this point in time, but it's the little things, it's nickel and diming us at all times, coming down. So estimated cost for this right now is $600,000. If you look at the brush truck that I just put before you in this one, I am also looking and specking out a dual truck that might be able to do both purposes, which would be this tanker truck. I'm working with a vendor now that would take a regular tanker truck and put it on a 4-wheel drive chassis and give us the ability to use it slightly off-road. Not completely like the military truck we can do, but slightly off-road. So it would do the job of the tanker and the job of the forestry, but neither perfectly. Tanker we have now is 3,000 gallons. And if I were to get a regular on-road tanker, that's what I'd be looking for again. But what I'm working on now, if it's a dual purpose that we have to go for, it would be 2,000 gallons instead of 3,000. It would be able to do both jobs. And this was on last year as a 3,000 gallon tanker as well.
So this truck's 33 years old. So it's so a lot of weight for a 33-year-old truck.
So this is your third request?
For this at least, yes. There are different plans with this one too. Most of my requests all kind of tie in together. There's different plans I can do, but I'm hamstringed by a lot of different things. Fire Station 1 up in Templeton Center is not big enough to take modern fire apparatus. I could take my next fire truck purchase, which would be in a couple of years, and make it into a engine/tanker, which would do the job, but it won't fit up at that station. So.
To the chair, I have another question.
Yes, good.
I know one of the things that advisory, worked on a long time was comparison communities, 10 comparison communities. And I am just curious what the average age of equipment, is there a difference?
I really can't answer that. I haven't gone down that rabbit hole to that extent with the equipment for that. We've done past looking at manpower because manpower was what we really needed in getting up to that stage. But equipment all over in our comparison communities and in our district in general, equipment was lacking, but in the past 5 years, everyone's been getting slowly new equipment, and really comparison communities like the town asked me to do doesn't necessarily meet up with what we need to do as a fire department. It's not the same.
Because when I looked at the comparison communities, that we approve, And, you know, the one thing that stuck out like a sore thumb was the manpower, you know, that stuck out like a sore thumb. I mean, all the other comparable communities, you know, the other 10 communities, they had, you know, substantially more full-time people. And I'm just curious, I really am curious. I think I'm gonna look at it myself as to the age of their equipment.
Give you a pen.
I think it'll be a hard place to find too many towns in comparison that have 33-year-old on-road tankers and 46-year-old forestry trucks. I mean, just coming from the industry,
I would agree with that. And I mean, it seems like, I mean, what is the standard turnaround for a comparable community? Again, I'm
So I can't speak for a community, but I can tell you NFPA tells you that your fire apparatus should be in primary operation for 20 years. And then another 5 years is a backup secondary piece. So I can tell you that
you're over that.
we are over that. And we don't have a backup tanker. So your tanker is your piece. So even if you want to consider it 25 years, we're past that. Your backup stuff, we really don't have. We have secondary equipment, but it's not a backup. When they say backup, it's a secondary role, doesn't get used.
so this should be used for. And basically any structure fire or any fire outside of the hydrant district.
Any structure fire out of the hydrant district, yes.
Templeton now about 50-50 or 60-40.
Around 60-40.
But
And it has the ability to be used in the hydrant district too, because just because you're in a hydrant district doesn't
Right.
mean we have good water.
correct.
Nothing against the water department, they do a great job.
Does it, do you know if this truck was to come out of service because of the age of it and expecting a 33-year-old truck to be unsafe, to be safe, and where would that stand with do you know what the town's ISO ratings on what it can provide for water to?
I don't know that, but I know that the ISO ratings would take a hit because if we had to lose it.
That's kind of what I thought. I just wanted to, if that was to go out, especially
We're out of the, where we don't have 100% water coverage.
out of the hydrant district, my concern would be that it would quickly start affecting residents' insurance issues.
Yeah, I get phone calls quite often from insurance companies asking where the closest fire hydrant is. And then if it's so far away, do I have a water source near? And the answer is always that tanker.
Well, this ISO number, and you know, it seems to me that eventually property insurance rates could go up.
Any more questions on the tanker? No. No. All right, next.
Number 3 is another forestry unit, forestry 2. This has been on my list for a few years. Current cost would be 185,000 we're looking at. This would replace a 1978 Chevy pickup truck that's been retrofitted into a forestry. The 1978 is a manual transmission, and I have very few employees that are able to drive it anymore because they cannot drive manual transmissions. The last time I had work done on this was, I believe it was last fiscal year, the beginning of this fiscal year. I had the rear end replaced and the clutch and flywheel replaced at a cost of $5,000 for both. So the tank on this is a metal tank, not a polyplastic tank. That is definitely showing signs of age.
What would the new forestry, what would your new proposed one have for tank wise?
It
And
would be a 500-gallon tank compared to this one being a 300-gallon tank. It would have the ability to carry more manpower into the woods because it would be a modern chassis that would be able to hold 4 people compared to the 2.5 that the current truck can hold.
Out of your, your two forestry, your initial one would be your first priority out of those two forestry units.
The tanker would be the priority because that one's out of service.
And ultimately you could do some of the same work with
Correct.
that tanker as you could with
Right.
pickup truck, just a little bit bigger areas.
This one here, 2 years ago when I asked for it, was $30,000 less. Everything, the cost, as everyone knows, is going up so dramatically on everything.
And once it's up, it's not coming down, unfortunately. And I don't think makes a difference on anything that I think it's. The companies have gotten a taste of the high prices they can get and know they have to get, so. I don't think the funding's gonna come down in prices on pretty much anything, unfortunately. Are these the only vehicle wise ones that you basically have as far as vehicles
Yes. Well, kinda.
outside besides the agro?
Outside the yard, those are the only.
Have you? I know we've talked about it before. Have you got lease prices on it to see what the cost would be, or could you get them so
I-
that?
Yes, I can get them. I have not made that far into the cost because of no one will give me a hard number at this point in time.
I only ask because looking at just between the three of them, which obviously. You're not gonna get all three, if any of them. It's. Over $1 million just between the three of them, and
Correct.
obviously looking at. The tanker, it's. Above what we even are given to use this year. The first forestry tanker is basically. Almost gets close to maxing out what we're being given to use for a year. I guess as a board, we kind of need to see where we want to. Go with things, if we want to do. Zero capital items for 3 years till we get enough money to actually purchase things. Or if there's other ways of breaking it down so that the payments aren't as much, so that we can. Still get and move the town forward on. Doing things while we're still able to do pieces for each department. I think it's something that. The town, not only just this board, I think the board of selectmen need to figure out on how they want to prioritize that too, so. I think it would still be helpful for us, at least it would be for me, as far as to see. What a. Portion would be if you were able to get it on a lease payment, just to see where we could. Help with things with the town, as far as that goes. Because that would allow for some of these other departments as things come up, like the. Rec and like some of the, and like the town common, we'd still have money to be able to do some of these smaller projects. Unfortunately, yours and DPW's, I think, pretty much maxes us out each just for one item for the town. So I don't necessarily know if that's the right way to go with one item and just wait a few years, or if it's something that, because we keep putting them off and the prices aren't going to go down. So either we have to adjust how we do it as a town, or we have to accept that we're not going to do capital items except for one item every 4 years. And I don't necessarily know if that's going to help in a lot of the departments. But,
Especially when you start getting to my fire trucks.
well, and
Fire truck that was $450,000 in 19 is gonna be 700,000 plus for the exact same truck. When we go, well, actually not even when we go to buy it right now, it's 700,000. We're still looking 2 years out. Until we replace a fire engine, so 700 would be the lowest. It's gonna be more than that.
oh, definitely. Yeah.
The ladder truck is a 2006, I believe. And Tom, you can refresh my memory, that was somewhere around 750, 800,000.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm being given off the top of your head estimates at 1.5 for that same style truck.
Yeah, the prices are not coming down, and somehow we have to figure out. And it's not even just your department either,
Right.
unfortunately, it's
No,
the
it's
dump trucks, the trucks for the recreation, recreation, even, just anything outside of services is going, materials skyrocket. I'm sure even all your cable stuff skyrocket, probably doubled in prices.
Yeah.
Just in components. So I think it's important. We need to just figure out if there's a better way to prioritize so we can
Yeah, we don't have
Still
enough
move-
funds every year to,
No, it'd be nice.
what
if
we need.
No, it would, yeah, it certainly would be nice if we did. But just an idea, if you can maybe get that information
I
to
can get
the
some ways-
committee,
I
just
can
so
get
we
some
can see if there's a
ideas.
better way of we can piece things together.
I can do that.
Anybody have any other questions on the apparatus that he's got so far? Before he goes into the other two items? All right, good, chief.
And next on my priority list, it's listed as new fire station. What it actually is a study to see where we are with our stations now, where we need to be moving into the future and how to get there. Two fire stations we have, Fire Station 1 up in Templeton Center was built in the early to mid 1960s. And we did an addition in the 1990s to put an ambulance up there when we were still an all-call department. And it has our only training room in it. The kitchen in the back is our only training room. It can hold about 20 to 24 people in it, kind of comfortably. But with that training room, our bay becomes 30 feet deep, which cannot fit real modern equipment. Some of it, we would have to start engineering the equipment to fit into it, which raises the cost on the equipment going into it. This station is a non-manned station, meaning it's the call firefighters or full-time too if they're in that side of town, but it's not our day-to-day operations station. Station 2 in Baldwinville, which is our headquarters, was not built to be a fire station. That was, and I don't know what it began with, but it was a library at one point in time, turned into light department building, town offices, apartments up top. Right now, if you need an ambulance and it's nighttime, firefighters are on the second floor of the front building, have to go down 2 flights of stairs through a garage, outside through a parking lot to get to the ambulance or to get to any of your fire apparatus. It doesn't meet any NFPA codes to be a fire station. It has had some modernization in the past. We're updated electrical in it. Internet and stuff has been hodgepodge, but we have some internet and stuff that goes through it halfway decent. But it's looking at some major repairs coming up in the future. Both rubber roofs on the front building and the front garage probably have 5 years left on them. We've done repairs to the back garage, which is a steel building, and sealing up screw holes so that the leaking roof stop leaking. It just was never made to be a fire station. In the past, I've asked for 30,000 here to help redo a proper kitchen for the firefighters there. Bob been asking the last couple of years for us to get repaved so that the parking lots at both station can take the heavy equipment that goes on them now. Neither one of them were designed for the equipment that's driven over them. And we no longer have working security cameras. They can work, I can look at them all day long and see what they are, but the recording devices are so outdated that the calendar stopped working and I can't record anymore. I've asked for money 3 years running for security updates and gotten turned down every year for it. Instead of trying to hodgepodge what thought would get passed, finally decided that the correct action was trying to have a study to see where we should be in the future. I understand it may go nowhere. We have a school that we have to pay off. We have a police station that should have been a public safety building to pay off. But that doesn't mean we can neglect fire stations as well. And the correct way to do that is to have a study and have a professional do it. A few years ago, when Carter had a study done to see if Templeton and Phillipston could do any shared combination of services, fire and EMS. They looked at our facilities, and in that report, the scathing reviews about Templeton Fire buildings. Now it does not meet the needs of the firefighters in the community. So that's already one. That's a few years old. That one did not get into details because that's not what the report was really looking at. We need something that's going to go into some details and tell us what we need to do.
And basically the needs assessment, it is the first step, and it's, even if it doesn't go anywhere in the first year because a fire station or changes to buildings, it still is a useful tool.
There's also rumors of the state trying to put together a program like the schools do to help with fire department funding. And the way that would work, at least in the beginning, is if you had a project ready to go, you'd probably take higher priority. This is the first step in getting to a point where we actually have something to do. So $100,000 is an estimate. I know a community nearby that had it done for 75,000 a couple of years ago. I added a little bit to that because of price increases. I have not gone to get any estimates on that yet, because to be perfectly honest, I don't know where to go, and I need to talk with Adam or someone to get some help to get a better price on that.
I think that, in my opinion, on a lot of as far as the needs on the stations, obviously they're woefully outdated. As far as emergency wise, some not even being built originally to use for that. I think that this is definitely the first step towards trying to see what the community needs. They could come in and say that they don't need 2 stations. And maybe that's something that they say they need 1 station in the middle. The needs will look at the size of the community, they'll look at the equipment, what's needed. They look at what needs to be done to be ADA compliant in buildings that I'm certain aren't ADA compliant completely. It's a very much it's the first step. Again, if funds were to free up, it's certainly a fantastic starting point for the ARPA funds. Again, as a project, if there's other things, because it's going towards your infrastructure here in your community. And I think that our community is very infrastructure weak when you look at our buildings. Even this, building they renovated here ultimately isn't the size of the town hall that should be, and having everything. We piecemeal a lot together, which is what I applaud us for. We've been able to do that, but as you're going forward, we have the possibility of doing, infrastructure improvements with funds that will never, ever see the government giving to the state, towns again. I think it's important to use some of that stuff if we can, if it does become available for planning ahead in the future. That's part of what we tend not to do here, is we don't plan too far ahead. And I think this is the potential way of the fire station planning ahead, in my opinion.
Last calendar year, we had several leaks in the Baldwinville Fire Station. One of them was where at the time we were having our ambulance supplies stored, and whenever it rained, it soaked the area to the point where I had to put the dehumidifier wouldn't keep up. It wasn't getting on the supplies. It would leach down the walls, but I had to put decking down so that everything was up off the floor, new shelves to make sure everything was away from the walls. We've since moved that stuff from there, and Building and Grounds has repointed the brick in that area, which has stopped the leaks on that back area. The front of the building, when the police department was sharing that building with us, was found that the front of the building is sinking. I don't know if it's a structural crack. I don't know if the brick is structural to the building or not, but there was some pretty big cracks in the front office. Since then, during some very, very heavy rains, we got water pouring in between the brick facade and the glassed in entry area, to the point where you would need an umbrella to be inside. The highway came in and fixed some mortar joints that had separated over an inch in between the joints to get us so that we were watertight again. The whole building, if it wasn't replaced, needs to be repointed, and everything between the bricks and everything needs to be done. The rubber roofs were patched a couple of years ago, and we were told then it probably had about 5 years left on the rubber roof. So.
Anyway,
So good.
You brought up something that was very interesting and that I wasn't aware was happening. I've spoken with Representatives Lotnick about the Chapter 90 monies for the DPW. And the Chapter 90 monies is actually borrowed money. The state borrows the money to in turn give it to the cities and towns. And primarily it was for equipment, but smaller DPWs also tend to use it for paving. When I spoke with him, I spoke with him about the need for more funding that was similar to Chapter 70 for the school department. And I think he's going to work on it this year. I hope he does, try to change the formula so that less affluent communities have a bigger place at the table. And also not to rely on borrowed money, but to change it so that it mirrors, Chapter 70 education aid. So my question to you is this just talk about, trying to, make aid to, state aid to fire departments, like aid to the school department, or is
I
that?
don't know.
Actually, it's not a detail on it, if you don't mind me jumping in. Basically what was proposed this past session was a bill through Senator Goby, or Trahan. It was a united bill that actually was put forward. It didn't go through to the voting process and is being reinitiated for the next session. What they're looking for it to be is similar to the school building projects, where I believe it's like a penny of every tax that goes towards those building projects. I don't know the exact numbers on on the funding on that. And they're looking to have it be something of that nature. So that the state would pay, depending on your income level in your community, up to 80% of the project, and the town would be responsible for, say, 20% or 75-25, wherever you fell in the scale that they determined to use in the legislature. It's being reintroduced in the next session with hopes of it. It seems like it's gained it in the last time discussion, it gained quite a bit of bipartisan. Both sides were in favor of moving forward on it, knowing the infrastructure of the fire stations around the state, with the emphasis kind of being on they want to see that the towns put some effort into it by coming forward with a potentially shovel-ready project, quote. No guarantees, obviously, on that when it's going to go through. They're probably figuring by the time it goes through session, through the House, that it could be a year, 2 years before this actually even comes into play. But in the meantime, as towns are getting their projects in line, I think it's more the direction that they're looking to go with that, as far as that goes. At least that's when I talked with him and with Representative Zlotnick and Senator Goby on it. I've kind of gone back and forth with their presentation to the Chiefs Association in some ways, and gone back and forth with them on when things are coming back out on it. Because obviously I'm chief of next door, and we're hoping to see the same thing comes forward. Again, it'll be obviously a competitive thing, I would think, but it's something that isn't obviously as far from a guarantee, but if it could come into play for public safety and for that type of infrastructure, I think it's both sides are supportive of it. It's just ironing out, I think, how the details, where it would come out of, and trying to structure it after the school, the way they did the school buildings that I think Templeton took advantage of when they built Templeton Center, I believe.
Well, the school building assistance program has been in existence for decades, so I can see that would make sense for a fire station, but the chief is in a box year in and year out because, it's hard to get big requests for equipment through the town meeting and, maybe you could float a bond issue, but a bond issue for equipment that wears out is not, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe leasing is the way to go, but I just think that you need a revenue stream that's like like a chapter 70 and you don't have that.
No, I think this is basically they're looking to start with the infrastructure on the stations and that, but grant town equipment wise, they have some smaller equipment grants that I know she's taken advantage of and that, and it's again smaller equipment. Unfortunately, it's not the big pieces of apparatus that are few and far between on grants.
We have basically nationally one chance a year at the big piece of equipment like that. And then there's every now and then you can find a grant that's not as well advertised or something and find something, but it's really the assistant firefighters grant is the one where you can go out and look for that big piece of equipment. Everything else is smaller.
That's almost like winning the lottery, I would think.
Yeah.
You need a steady revenue stream, and but I just want you to know that I have talked with Representative Zlotnick about the DPW side, but I think that would be helpful to your department as well.
Anything that brings in revenue to my department of the town would be beneficial, so.
All right, anyone have anything else on the station?
Well, the last item I have, this is actually my only new, actually I asked for this last year, so it's not a new request, but it's the only new piece of equipment. Call it a forestry Argo. Argo is a brand name. It's like a John Deere side-by-side off-road vehicle. The Argo is a little different. It is not a 4 wheels. It's 8-wheel apparatus, 4 per side. It's amphibious. We can use it in open water. It's safer to use on the ice. The way I've spec'd it out, it comes with tracks for the wintertime use to be able to go through the snow. It has a forestry little skid unit on it that would give you very limited amount of water and some forestry equipment for brush fires deeper out in the woods. It has a medical stretcher skid as well that could be used for rescues out in the woods. We do have a lot of woods in Templeton, both private and state, and we go out in them quite a bit. We go out to the off-road racetrack and do ambulance calls where we have to get out onto the track as well. We've done searches for people in the woods where this piece of equipment would have been very useful multiple times throughout my career. And the forest portion of it, getting out to where some of these vehicles can't get to, even if it's just to help get equipment out there and so forth. So this is a new piece of equipment that I'm looking for that I think would be very beneficial for us.
I gotta wait for one moment.
Yep.
Sorry.
So you could use this in conjunction with the drone that I know successfully worked as far as here in town with the, and it'd be something that you could
Yes.
just kind of an extension of the arm further out into the woods as far as searches go and those type of things.
Yes.
The
The cost to do a John Deere style unit is a little cheaper, but it really doesn't give you the safety factors that the Argo does for tipping safety and being able to be amphibious on the water and so forth. So if you take this out and the ice is thin, you've got a much better chance of a positive outcome to where if somebody took out that same John Deere, you're probably sinking it.
This unit will basically go anywhere. If one tire can touch, it basically can go over, it goes over stone walls, it goes over pretty much anything that it's they're nice units as far as rescue goes, especially as communities get more off-road hiking trails. You see a lot more community preservation in the towns to where we get trails of people just trying to be healthier. They're walking out into the woods. It's, there's paths behind the school. I know they've had calls where the school has had injuries out into the back rec areas to where they've had to carry out.
We go out multiple times a year, the cross-country track behind the school for students that are down.
This would be able to go in onto the, off the paths and stuff. With a Stokes unit on it. So it's definitely a unit that's usable and, something that, again, they're not cheap units like everything else, unfortunately. And would this be with a trailer? This would include a trailer?
This does not include a trailer. I have a trailer that will, I believe, work for it.
Do you have any more questions on Margot? All right, I think that's.
Tanks this year,
What's
your
that?
air tanks, thanks.
My SCBA frame and all my tanks, that project was completed. So, Adam, through this process, when the brush truck went out of service, Adam requested that I go to the light department and ask if they would be willing to fund that, because they had been doing roughly about $70,000 a year for the fire department now for 5 or 6 years anyways, to get us through our SCBA project. I reached out to them and asked them if they would entertain a multi-year lease at that same rate to be able to, so that we could do this. And what I was told is they don't look at anything until at least May. So we were lucky that every year through the SCBA project that they granted it to us. Otherwise, the project was stalled without the funding. And then he never answered when it came to a multi-year lease or not. He just says that they don't even, the light board doesn't even look at it until May to see how the previous year went financially, to see if they can still do it with the town.
Oh, yeah.
So. And I can guarantee you, if any of this fails, I will be looking, and I'm told by Adam to request from them again that I will be, trying to get multi-year lease or whatnot from forestry or whatever I need to be able to go to them, because I think it's a fantastic avenue. Unfortunately, they won't even look at it until May.
All right, if no one's got anything else on the projects for the chief, thank you
I
for.
could probably come up with a whole bunch more if you want. I
Keep
think that is enough.
the rest at $9,000 and bring it to budget.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, last but not least, the gentleman that always comes in with a funding source. It's always a pleasure to read his.
Well, I'm glad that you like that. Maybe we can create a funding source for the chief too.
That would be a good thing.
Yeah. So I sent you a memo with our requests as well, just and some of the are kind of reminders. I think most of you know that we're funded through the subscriber fees. That we have an enterprise account, so no taxes are required for the funding and for all our capital items. And we use our retained earnings for the capital expenditures. So everything in our 5,700 account in the budget is really being drawn from retained earnings. So what you usually see there is not what we plan to spend in a year. We've got 114,000 there in that 5,700 account this year. It's usually like a 3 or 5 year plan that you're looking at, and they're there in case we need them. So, because if you don't have that and you don't have the money, you're going to have to go to special town meeting. And I don't think any of us want to go to special town meeting for a cable request. So this is something that we started when Carter was here to do it that way. And I kind of think of our operating budget then as like a checking account, and then our 5,700 account is like a savings account. And we'll probably put back 100,000 or close to it from that 5,700 account back into retained earnings at the end of this year. We're not spending much money right now. So I hope that's understandable. I've made some changes to our usual requests this year. We've had some issues with a device called a fiber transmitter. Channel 8 is black without a fiber transmitter. It basically takes our signal from the TV server, which we work very hard to create, and sends it out on Comcast's dedicated fiber. We've lost 2 cable transmitters in the last year. And this is what I found out. Comcast isn't buying any more of them, and we're getting stuff that's being dug out of closets. There's used equipment because they upgrade other stations to fiber encoders, which they're charging $30,000 and up for. So it's not just in the hardware, but in the business end of the fiber connection, the electronics are where all the money is. And apparently, I think Comcast wants to do these fiber encoder upgrades when you're negotiating the contract. Well, guess what? We're in year 5 of a 10-year contract. So we may have 5 years of replacing fiber transmitters with used fiber transmitters, and one more replacement. Now I've done 2 in less than a year. I'm going to start hammering them on getting a fiber encoder, maybe before the contract. I think they want to do it in the contract because I'm told they want us to own everything in the rack. They're responsible still for the fiber transmitter, so they have to give us one when one breaks. So I just don't want to keep going through this, and I realize we really have to set aside some money for catastrophic loss like that, in case we need to do the fiber encoder before the next round of negotiations. And, you know, our contract isn't up to 2027, so we may have several more years of replacing fiber transmitters. And also our, you know, the light department is kind enough to give us room in their garage in Baldwinville. You know the location of it at 3 Elm Street. It also happens to be in a floodplain, and I believe a dam nearby is having some trouble. So if that dam breaks, that little building's floating somewhere in Otter River State Forest, and our rack is at the bottom of the river. So we may have to relocate that broadcast location. You can't just, you know, we couldn't just, don't worry, town hall employees, I don't want to put it here, but we couldn't just stick it here and tie into their lines. We'd have to buy dedicated fiber from them. Last time was 2007 in that little building, and 600 feet cost us $17,000. So I don't think the cost is probably gone down.
Is that something that
Fiber is expensive.
and could go into Scout Hall as far as to make a bigger, better building style thing for it? Or is it something that would not be efficient
Yes.
for you to do that?
And I've been resistant to do that because of the costs. My preferred location for it has been the EMR building 100 feet away. And even that could cost us $5,000 to pull the fiber back and do that. But emergency management, as you may know, is going for some CPA funding with community preservation, and they need to get their building going. We can't even think about that until they upgrade their electrical.
And that's still in a floodplain too, so it really doesn't solve your floodplain issue too
Well,
much.
at least it's a sturdy employee.
But I was just wondering if it's something that, I mean, price aside, if ultimately that would be more efficient for you.
I'm
versus-
actually, for the first time, starting to warm to that idea of putting the broadcast rack, if we get into Scout Hall there. We're going to have to go to Comcast and say, okay, how much? You know, and I'm not sure where they tie into the lines. I know the nearest fiber node, I think, is North Main and Depot Road. You'd think there'd be one right here.
I was just gonna say, you seem like the people kind of.
Yeah, wow. I hope they can tie into it before that, because that looks.
I was just
like-
curious if that would be. Move forward on that a little bit to help you out on that.
Yeah, if we needed an emergency location, we can go to the school because they have a location, but you know, as a permanent setup there, we moved away from that because of access issues and other issues. And, you know, the school is the school, and you don't want to be trying to access it in the night after they change their security codes. Yeah, the town meeting, we went to test the encoder there that sends a signal to the station for a live meeting. And we found out they had changed their whole network. So it took 3 of us 3 hours to figure out how to reprogram the thing so we could do town meeting. So, I mean, they're going to make changes that we wouldn't like there anyways. That could serve as a temporary location. Yeah, I think, we should look probably at Scout Hall when it's ready for that. So that's that monster. And so what I'm looking to do, I'm not looking to spend it. I'm looking to put it aside in case we need it and keep a 60,000 kind of safety fund in our capital fund. And when we first started the station, I remember we breathed a big sigh of relief when we had collected 60,000 for catastrophic loss as well. The second one I have there, I don't know if it's second on your list, but we usually put in for $15,000 just for miscellaneous equipment upgrades. We buy computers every year. We've already spent, we haven't spent much on capital this year, but we've spent a couple thousand on, small items and things like we have a little pop-up studio at Wachusett Business Incubator in Gardner. Computers need to be replaced. We'll probably buy a shoulder mounted camera. We need to graduate to those. 5,000, the old 3-channel or 3, what do they call it? 3-camera switcher, $15,000 production switcher that's near the bottom. Those can be had now for probably, 5,000. So yeah, Tom, in some ways the costs have gone up, but the ease of use stuff, you kind of go for that now. And the big systems like the one in the closet and the big cameras, I think are kind of going away. That to replace this one now, you're not talking 30, you're talking 50. And to do what I would want it to do now, you're probably talking 80, and we have a finite amount of retained earnings, so I don't want to be spending it there. And we're really happy with these units. So not ready to rip this system out yet. It's still a good backup for us, but we like the meeting owls to go forward if we can. 10,000 for Scout Hall furnishings. This has been on for several years now. Hopefully someday we'll get to use it. And that could just be storage, desks, and probably a security system too.
What's the reasoning for Scout Hall not moving forward on a lot of the stuff over there? Is it just not enough time, or just too much stuff going on, or is there a?
Well, right now
I know,
there,
like you said, it comes forward each
Yeah.
year and you don't end up having to use it. to
well,
use
there
it.
were delays with the committee and issues with that. And then in the past couple of years, it's been, I think they have 40,000, Holly may know, 40,000 in CPA funding left. I think some of that's being used. Adam's getting it delated now. So Monty Tech will take on the work. Monty Tech wouldn't touch it without it being deleted. And we previously could not get, I think we couldn't get anyone to reply to the RFP, right?
For what? For which
For
one?
Scout Hall work.
A prior one.
Yeah, Adam had put it out for RFP and nobody
Okay, I was just curious what,
applied.
I know, like you said, you brought it up.
It's been a
few
long
years.
history.
Yeah. One thing after another.
So we always said that we would match some funds and do some of the furnishings there since, the very first CPC meetings. And the other thing I have on there is 20,000 for the Montechusett TV website development. And this would add an ad platform, which would cost around $10,000, possibly an e-commerce platform that we'd like to do eventually. And that needs, to be marketed as well. And, you may look at this and say, oh, why is that in capital? Well, that's our new brick and mortar. So that needs to be developed. We have 5,000 there this year. I plan to spend it probably on just upgrades to what we have. But right now, Rich is driving it around the block, looking pretty, and we have to really make it work so that we can have, Noel, when you were talking about recurring revenues and revenue streams, that's what I'm thinking. We need revenue streams so that we can survive, because cable's not going to survive.
So ultimately, this is an investment towards moving cable earnings and that forward. Basically to the next step as far as bringing in.
Right.
Versus.
And it's largely meant as a lifeboat for TCTV if it needs it. So Montechusett TV is actually arrives a couple years early. we probably wouldn't have considered it until now. But last year we saw an MOBD Mass Office of Business Development grant to do, a digital platform for businesses, and we went for it. So I don't mind, like, as I said, driving around the block for the next year, but we're gonna have to make something out of it. And it's gonna cost an investment. And that's likely that. So that's my spiel. And we're gonna remove the town hall conference system, at least I would like to for now. I'm not saying we wouldn't revisit that, and the production switcher can be had out of miscellaneous equipment, and the EMR location that we had put on previous ones could be, rolled into that $60,000 safety fund. I hope that makes sense to you.
It does, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Steve on his presentation?
We do. Yes,
You do, good.
yeah, I have two questions.
Certainly.
Is Comcast following its contract with the town?
As much, I would say, yes, technically, they do. And they're good with service. If people have, this is you, public, Templeton Public, if people have problems with Comcast, file complaints. Because what happens is during the contract negotiations, they come in and they say, see, we have no complaints.
Complaints with who? The DPU?
Comcast, they have to register them.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you have trouble hooking up, I'm one day Tim Toth and his wife were having trouble with it, and I had always said, file a complaint. You need to file a complaint. Well, they're going to walk into our negotiations and say, look, we have no complaints. The fiber encoder thing may be an issue. I mean, if they're putting in used fiber transmitters because they don't want to buy new ones, we'll hammer them with that in the contract negotiations. I don't know how far that's going to go. And I'll have to look at the contract.
But are they making you spend money that you don't have to spend today?
I would not say Comcast is necessarily. Well, I'll have to think. That's a good question. You'll probably keep me up at night thinking about. I'll tell you this.
I mean, if they had using used equipment that forces you to invest in equipment you wouldn't have to invest in,
That's the whole technology market, planned obsolescence. But I think when we get to the contract, they're gonna say you need to upgrade to a fiber encoder, and that's how they get some of their money back. It's not even their money, it's cable subscribers' money. So that may be an example of it.
just seems a little slippery to me, but
It's
so
the
my other
cable.
question.
Boy, I'll tell you, look at some of the FCC orders that I've looked at. In 2019, there was an FCC order and everyone was up in arms because Comcast wanted to take back in-kind contributions. So when you're negotiating, we don't have the negotiating power with them to get computers for the schools or street lights or stop signs or stop lights like some communities apparently do. And there was a big to-do about it and everyone was worried. And they even said that they were going to charge you for transmitting the signal from your station to them. They only had to quantify it and they didn't know how to do it. They'll be back next year.
But I'm not surprised. But my other
Yeah.
question is about the
Can I just finish my thought?
oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Senator Markey, the Massachusetts senator, who's probably the foremost authority on telecommunications and cable in Congress, and his buddies basically changed one word and got the in-kind contributions thrown out, but the whole rest of the order are technical, legal, and grammatical contortions of the highest order to say that we can't go after their phone and internet money. We can only go after their TV money, municipalities. We were told back in 2003, when we first started our first contract with them, that we couldn't go after that. So why are they making such a fuss in an FCC order to do that? Because apparently it's not codified in law and it's a tender underbelly. That needs to be changed, but I'm also told by legal experts that you're not going to get any changes in the Telecommunications Act unless it's deadline oriented, and all those changes are going to be piecemeal. So where this goes. I don't know. I can talk your ear off on how we're boxed in as well and, to try to get funding for what we're trying to do and to try to create a media business that can fund us so we don't have to rely on these subsidies. And that's what we're dealing with, but feel free to join us in the contract negotiations. It'll be fun.
I agree with you that Comcast is like a huge truck that just is gonna run you over at some point, but my other question is about the e-commerce platform, you have any idea what the potential revenue?
I don't. I know our web partners in Concert Development and Gardner, that's what they're excited about to partner with us on. We just got a $20,000 website for $5,000 because they're willing to partner with us. And the owner there says he would really like to do e-commerce. We have to get this site popular first, so people in the region are using it. And then, hey, Katie's Cupcakes in Leominster, sells we can turn it into a shopping experience, sells a plate of cupcakes and we get $1 or 25 cents or something like that. And I know Cheryl's probably saying, I don't want to deal with all that. And I don't want you to, but that's why we're looking to build a digital lab, which we need for a feeder system anyways for our employees. And to create a nonprofit organization out of that can be the fiduciary for the website.
Is this in Concert Web Solutions?
Yes. Yeah, they've been very good. And when we were developing the site in the late stages, had to spend some extra time on some things. We said, oh, look at that. We could charge for that. We could charge for that. We could charge for that preferred placement. We could charge for a placement in the sliders of the images that roll by on the homepage. We're not going to charge for all of it, but that's what publishing and media companies do. They decide, okay, you can charge for this, charge for that, charge for that. And of course, the ad platform would be good. I'm not interested in Google ads. That's nickel and dime stuff. I'm interested in selling partnerships for $5,000, $10,000 to local attractions like Wachusett Mountain, Great Wolf Lodge and make them partners on the website. And they're going to need banners and stuff like that. So we do have big plans for it. But it's going to take some time and it's a long-term project.
Well, that's what a vision is. I mean, that's putting a vision towards on the planning, which is
Mm-hmm.
part of capital planning. It's not just planning for this year, it's planning for the future years.
Mm-hmm.
That's important.
I also like the fact you're teaming with a local company,
Yeah, that was big for us. I really wanted to go local with that.
Yeah.
And they've been excellent. So we'll get them on the ball soon again. Any other questions?
Anything else?
No.
Thank you for taking the
All right.
time. I
Thank
appreciate
you very much.
Thank you.
Steve. I think that's our only, what we got to review today. Oh, we got nobody else coming in, do we?
No.
Anyone else have any other questions or anything they want to bring up as far as on the proposals or any of that? We're not going to obviously vote on them now. We're going to wait till we do all our recommend, hear everything and see it, get all the information, but if anyone's got anything that they want to bring up at this time?
No, I'm good.
Good.
No.
I don't, I would, entertain a motion then. Adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, made and seconded, all in favor?
I
Aye.
I